Then along came social media, and people started to see that they could connect with their audience directly via social media. And while this worked well for the first few years of social media and people did grow their businesses, and social media can be hugely effective, I'm not sure if you've seen in the last 2 or 3 years that certainly posting on Facebook, posting on Twitter is not as effective as it used to be, because there is so much noise and people are so wary now of misinformation. And this has definitely come more to light since COVID and all the crazy stories that were being published online in relation to COVID. So why do PR? Let me tell you what I did. I turned away from media relations after I quit journalism and went into PR, and I focused solely on social media to try and grow my business. And I would get a couple of likes here, I'd get a couple of comments there. I tried the long Facebook posts, I tried Twitter. I still use Twitter, and I'm going to explain that in tomorrow's video why that's still very important. And I did all the things and I tried out all the things. And while I was getting likes, I was getting comments, I wasn't getting the audience that I needed. And likes and comments, as you know, don't convert into anything. They're not going to grow your business. It's lovely, and it's lovely when people see, oh, you got 25 comments on your post, but have any of them converted? And when you post on social media, oftentimes you're not quite sure what kind of an audience is going to be watching or listening. Now, you can target this down with ads, and I'm not going to look into ads in this, but I'm on about, say, when you generally post a Facebook post about your business or about a win in your business, you're never sure who is going to like or comment and whether they're going to convert into a customer. So I tried this for a long time, and I realized that I need to go back to what I know works, and that is publicity. When you niche right down to your own topic, and when you niche your list of journalists right down, it's hugely effective, and it has been very effective for me. And clients that I have worked with, a very recent client has featured on Harper's Bazaar, and this has grown her business in a massive, massive way. So why do PR? It's a tried and trusted method when you use it correctly. Now, we all know that PRs and public relations professionals have been slow to embrace digital. That's a certainty, and I have seen this myself. But what has brought the power back to PR is the misinformation that I mentioned earlier. And there was so much of that during COVID, and people wanted more authoritative sources to get their news from. So what did they do? They turned back to solid media sources to get their news. And in particular, which is a huge plus for local media, is they turned to their own local media sources for good, high quality content. And this is definitely a plus for the survival of local media, because it's certainly gotten a major hit during COVID and over the last few years. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about COVID now, and why COVID has actually opened up the door again so you can get publicity quicker and faster. So it's definitely changed the PR landscape. COVID has changed a lot of landscapes for a lot of us. But for PR, and if you're doing your own PR, it has actually opened the door again. The door was always open, but if PRs and journalists and bloggers have let me say, a love-hate relationship, and I've been on both sides of that. But during COVID, first of all, news production was absolutely slashed. Journalists lost their jobs. Many ended up working from home for a time and then lost their jobs, and it's hugely impacting on the life of journalists, bloggers, radio presenters across the board. But the need for news grew. The need for good quality news grew. And this is where you, doing your own PR as a PR professional, can fill a gap. There is a massive, massive gap there. And I think during the last 2 years, there has been a better understanding between journalists and PRs and how they can actually help each other. And I use the word help because That is what we really need to do in order to really be successful at PR, is to help journalists do their job. And you'll find, certainly during COVID, that there is more of an embracement again of getting what I call media proof and having that work alongside your social proof. Now, many brands have returned to putting their money back into earned media. Certainly at the start of COVID, many of them decided to pause all media because they wanted to see what the landscape was like, how the ground lay. So, but now they're returning in a fairly major way, and you will see that certainly in the run up to Christmas and in the couple of weeks before Christmas, which we're coming into now, and in the new year, that big brands have embraced earned media in a massive way again. And traditional and digital can work together. First of all, many traditional media outlets have a digital edition. And oftentimes when I talk to people, they kind of forget that. And this is often, I suppose, a fault of the media organizations, that they're not pushing their digital edition enough. But this has changed, and this has changed massively. While some still do a print edition, their digital edition is now where they're putting their most efforts into. And often people say to me, well, look, how can I actually track my PR? I can track my my hits on my website. I can track the impressions that my posts get on Pinterest. I can track Facebook likes. I can track all of this on social media. But how can I track a story that gets printed in my local media outlet or in a national media or a trade publication? Well, back in the day when I started, it was all about circulation, and you would get your return on investment from the circulation that a media outlet had. Now you can use impressions, certainly, to get some idea of how it worked. But as I said earlier, impressions, likes, comments, do they convert? That is what we're talking about here. We're talking about growing your business. I'm not on about vanity media coverage. I want this to be intentional, and it's going to help you get more clients, get more customers. So when you work with a media organization, oftentimes they will link back to your site. Now, major organizations are kind of slower to do this, but I'll tell you, they are doing it a lot more now because it's creating more revenue for them on their end. But you can track a PR placement by having a link in your press release that brings the reader, listener, viewer back to a certain page on your site. And you can track this really, really easily. There's a lot of tools that you can find online that will help you to track this. You can track engagement, how many times your website was visited from a certain PR placement. And you can potentially bring your customer into your ecosystem. And then the plan is to try and get them to stay on your ecosystem. Okay, so connecting with journalists has changed hugely over the last couple of years, in particular since the arrival of COVID. Many journalists would be taking a lot of time to speak to people doing PR, to people that would be coming in, leaving stories at the desk for them to follow up on. And there was a lot of time, being wasted really on the initial connections with people. Now, it's never actually been easier, because journalists are doing more virtual catch-ups, and you can have like a 10-minute Zoom call with the journalist to outline exactly what certain angles are involved in the story, who's available for interview, what kind of photos you have, what kind of video footage you have. And there's none of this kind of chit chat that there used to be. Certainly when I was a journalist, you would be on the phone to someone and there would be the chit chat beforehand, which isn't a problem. But certainly now there's more of, let's get to the story quickly. And this, in a way, has built a lot of trust, authenticity, and a certain level of cooperation that helps the journalist and that helps you pitching your story. Because when you start to build relationships with journalists, they will hook up with you for a 10-minute Zoom call just to check a piece of information, and it's a lot quicker, it's a lot more intentional, and it's certainly, in my view, a better way of working. Now, I think how we're consuming content is changing, and this has an effect on publicity also. And I want you to see your publicity as a campaign, not as just one story that you want to get out there. Let's say you have a press release and you're putting all the information in there about the product, what it does, you've got some quotes from someone, you're maybe having someone well known in your industry launch it. Well, there's lots of different elements to that story. And rather than send in one massive press release that gives all the story in one, my new way of working now is to look at it as a campaign of 3 to 4 stories, as opposed to one massive press release with all the information together. And why I think this is important as regards getting publicity is you're giving yourself more chances to get the journalist to notice your story, and you're also creating a content campaign that can increase your visibility on Google, it can increase your backlinks, and it's going to increase your authority online and offline. So this is how I want you to look at your stories now, not just as one big story. So create a content campaign is what I want you to do now. And you can try this, still try the other method. If that's a method that you're finding that works for you, then absolutely fantastic. But when you land a story on a media site, local, national, international, it is ideal to be able to bring that person back to your website and have them see a lot more content there that is related to the original piece that they saw. So I want you to think smaller stories that are all connected, as opposed to one massive one that contains everything and you're just throwing it all out there in the hope that a journalist will pick one piece from it and run with it. No, because journalists are so time poor now, and because there are fewer and fewer of them, you need to give them the story in smaller chunks. So I think you need to create what I call a story sequence. So, and this will give you more chances to get publicity. So you would create an original story first. So you would pick your strongest angle and you would keep the story to 300 words maximum. And this is your original pitch. But you also have, for follow-ups, other stories. So you send the original story and you wait a week, 2 weeks to get a response. And if you don't hear anything, you're not sending the same piece again and hoping that it's going to land this time. You have new content because you've split your massive press release down into 3 or 4 stories. So the second time you go to email the journalist, you have a new element of content that's still relevant to the original story. So you have the original one, and now you have the second one with the new angle. And always keep this in the same thread so the journalist can see that they can go back and look at other emails that you've sent previously. So if your second story isn't picked up, and this is a regular occurrence, many PRs won't tell you this, but it's oftentimes your third or fourth pitch that will get picked up. Some people think this is annoying journalists, but if you're offering value and content, a journalist will see that rather than blasting them with 1,000 words of a press release. You're being more helpful, you're giving it to them in bite-sized chunks, which is what they need now because they are under huge pressure and have lesser time. They don't have time to read 1,000 words of a press release, to be quite frank. So keep it in the same thread. So you have your original story, your strongest one. Your second story is still a very strong angle that you're going to send as part of your second pitch. Then you're going to follow up again with another new insight. Maybe this time you are letting them know that a certain celebrity in your field, a well-known person, has endorsed you, has endorsed the product. And why I say this is a journalist may not be initially interested in your first angle, but then they'll see that you followed up. And rather than following up with Did you get my press release? You're following up with more valuable information that builds the picture further for them. So they're like, they can see, because you've done it on the same thread, okay, the original angle wasn't great, but maybe this one might be a better angle. It might not be. As I said earlier, it can take 3 or 4 times to land. So you will pitch again a third angle with a new insight, and maybe you're holding back your celebrity announcement. So you're going to pitch the journalist and go, look, we have a certain celebrity that is going to launch our product. This is what he or she has said. And you give it to them in bite-sized chunks. And it also keeps you in their mind because you are being more intentional with your emails. And certainly if by the 4th email, and you've emailed 4 times now, and I always caution about calling, and that is definitely for another video. Let's just stick with email for now. Certainly by the 4th email, if you have not seen any traction, if you've not got any responses, then you're just going to have to either make the decision to make a call or just let it slide. This journalist may not be the one to do your story, and I will have tips and tricks on how to do journalist outreach in tomorrow's video, so keep an eye for that. But doing a story sequence, I'm getting off the point now, if doing the story sequence instead of blasting one massive press release is a way that I'm seeing success now. So it's a good thing to keep in mind. If you have a lot of different angles to your product or service, try and map them out into 3 or 4 different stories that you can pitch around the time of your launch or around the time of a build-up of your new product going live on your site. Okay, so we are at 18 minutes and I'm delighted because I want these videos to be short and impactful and full of things that you can actually do. So at the end of each video, I want to give you a publicity idea. So publicity idea for day 1 is to pitch a collaboration idea with the media. Now you might think this is absolutely daft, but when I worked in newsrooms, we never really got pitches for collaborations. People felt that they were not either good enough or they didn't have a good enough story to actually pitch a collaboration. People think more of influencers, of bloggers in Instagram influencers to do collaborations and campaigns with. Well, why not pick a media outlet to do a campaign with? So here are some ideas. So if you can see a trend in your industry, can you pitch a collaboration or a series of articles, a series of like 5-minute voice interviews? Can you pitch something that is short and snappy and that can run over like 4 or 5 weeks? In January, journalists are always looking for new ideas. We're starting a new year. Their editors are putting pressure on them. We need some new ideas for January and into the new year to try and get some new people to come visit our site, because they're obviously looking for links too, and they're looking for ways to grow their audience. So if you can work with a media organization and pitch them a collaboration idea, it would be amazing. And I often wished that people would have done this more when I was a journalist. And when you go to pitch collaboration idea, have it mapped out in steps, and have it mapped out in steps that shows the journalist what the reader, listener, or viewer is going to get over a number of weeks. How are you going to help their audience do something new, innovative, or a new take on an old way of doing things? So get your thinking hat on and give it a go, and why not pitch a collaboration idea? It's a really easy way even to start a conversation with the journalist, especially if the journalist is someone that writes about something that you are an expert in. And it's also a fantastic way to increase your visibility, because you're going to be getting visibility over a number of weeks instead of over 1 week or on one radio show. You're going to increase it, and it's going to absolutely be mind-blowing for your business if you can secure a collaboration with a media organization. Okay, that's it for today. I hope you got some great value out of this, and please look at the description below where I'll have other tips and tricks. I'll also have the link to the workbook if you want to download that, and I'll also have a link to my book called Breaking into the Media: A Journalist's Guide to Publicity, and where you can get it on Amazon. It's at a reduced price for people that watch this webinar series. So take a look, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Bye bye.